It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. 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 She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeart Radio Station. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, and I am so glad to be here with everyone this evening. Tonight I have two guests. My first guest is on the phone with me, Dr. Neelum, and she is going to talk about the health care situation we have in regards to strokes. She's going to discuss the Sirius Project and African Americans and stroke prevention. Can you hear me, Dr. Neelum?
I sure can.
Thank you so much for agreeing to call in to the Straight No Chaser show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
So, in the African American community, what is the issue in regards to our having strokes?
Well, first of all, it's a huge issue in the African American community about stroke. So a couple things for your listeners. Stroke right now is one of the leading causes of death and disability in the United States, and that's a really important point. There's a lot of disability coming from stroke. So when people say to me, how common is it? Every 4 minutes, someone is dying from a state, okay? With regards to African American community, we know African American communities, based on the research and what's happening in the emergency rooms and the data we get coming through, is that African Americans are suffering very hard from stroke. They're not only having an increased rate of stroke coming through, but when they come to the emergency room, African Americans are coming in late. They're not coming in fast enough so that we can give a medicine. So it's a huge issue in the community by not just also coming in to the emergency room, but when our patients are coming in, they're coming in late.
When we have patients coming in late,
yeah,
is that increasing the rate of mortality?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so glad that you made that link. It's a really important link for everyone to understand. When you come in late for something, two things are happening. You know, as a physician, things are already proceeding. Something's already going down, if you will. And when that happens, then you're in more of a reactive mode where you have to try to figure out what's happening and try to stop it. When you come in early, you can get a lot more information about how things started, what's going on, and then we can use, our medical judgment about what we need to be doing to, number one, prevent something from getting worse, but what else we should be thinking about. So when you come in late, you're in reactive mode, and then that means mortality rates can go up, complication rates can go up, and that's really, unfortunately, what we're seeing.
For the African American community, what is the mortality rate from strokes?
Well, it's a good question. Mortality rate from stroke, whenever we talk about these rates from stroke, we talk about compared to the white population. And we always try to make a comparison. So if you have somebody from the same age, basically same medical conditions, what are the rates going to be? And I can tell you they're not equal. So they're going to be at least 1.5 times more than the average white person coming through, based on, again, age, sex, and the same types of medical conditions going on. So that rate already in your mind, when I talk to my people, I tell them about 1.5 to 2 times more rates are coming in for mortality. Now, It's a really important question what you asked, because people will say, well, doc, there's a lot of other stuff going on. You know, it's not just the medical conditions. It's how, you know, again, how do we get to the emergency room? Are we getting there in time? Is the medications that we can be given, are they being given? We're always looking at these factors, but even when you control for that, we still have some really startling figures about mortality rates and complications from stroke in the African American community.
When you say that we're getting there too late overall, one of my in-studio friends asked, how do you know when it's too late? So let me give a revised version of that question, which is, what are the signs and symptoms of a stroke that should alert you that you need emergency care right now?
All right, great question coming from the studio, and here it is. You have already seen around the city, and if you're driving, I had a couple signs up. I just was on 94 today, and on my way to Detroit, they had signs up that said fast. You may see that, fast. Face, arm, speech, time. It's the stroke kind of acronym. It's the kind of the lingo that we use for stroke when you see a stroke. Make a pact to act fast. Face, F is for face, facial droop. There's droopiness of the face on one side more than the other. That's the first thing you should look for. And here's how you check it out. Sometimes you say people have a lopsided face or the face is not symmetrical. Here's what I ask everyone. Smile. When you ask someone to smile, both sides of the face should go up. The smile should be even on both sides. If one side is droopy while the person's trying to smile, something's going on, okay? The A is for arm. One side of the body, one arm can get weak or it can get numb. Now this is where people say, doc, sometimes my hand gets numb, but I think I slept on it wrong, or I misused something, or I sprained it. What I tell everyone is put your arms out in front of you and hold them up. And if one arm starts to drift down, go down, and you're trying to keep it up, something's wrong. Something's not right. And that's what we end up seeing quite a bit with people. The arm suddenly gets not to be used. The F from fast is for slurred speech. Now this is the tricky one, because sometimes I've had people say, well, my speech wasn't that bad. I was talking. It's only when someone else listens to you, like on the phone or like here on the radio, if the speech, if you're not making the words clear, and it's almost sounding like you're drunk, but you haven't been drinking, that could be the sign that something's going on, like a stroke. Sometimes people even say the wrong words. So it's not just the slurred speech. They get the wrong words coming out. It's like gibberish. You're like, what are you saying? This is something that's so important. I tell everyone, when you're talking to somebody, especially face-to-face, or they're with you, and they start slurring their words, please look at them when they're doing this, because you may notice the face is now droopy and the arm is getting weak, and those are signs of a stroke. Oftentimes people don't do that. They just listen and they're like, why are you talking like that? So I'm going to ask everyone, if you hear it and you're with somebody, look at the person's face. And then the last thing is T. T stands for time. Time is important, and this is what you were saying, what does it mean to be late? As soon as you see these signs, you've got to call 911. And this is where the Sirius Project is all about this, calling 911 when you see the signs of a stroke. And because every time you call 911, you are shortening the time it takes to get to the hospital to get the right treatment that can be given if you get there in time.
Are there any symptoms that show more for men versus women?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because we do know a couple things right now with women in general. Women who are having stroke, they may not be recovering as well as men, so the recovery isn't as good, okay? With women, right now, women may not be as precise or able to tell the kinds of symptoms that are going on or express themselves as well, maybe, than a man could, and say this is what's happening. In general, we tend to use more words when we try to explain things as women, and we know that. We see that all the time. But women may have more vague kinds of symptoms. So where a man may have a big facial droop, right, and he may have that slurred speech, a woman may just say, I don't know, my face is a little numb today, I'm not sure what that is, and it may be very vague, and it may not be alarming. So those are the things right now we're looking into differences of what could be differences between men and women. But we do know women, when they do have a stroke, the recovery may not be as well as a man's stroke.
And that is troubling. Are we seeing an increase in people in a younger age bracket having strokes?
Yeah, you know, and again, a great and right-on question. Yes, yes, yes. And, you know, this is one of these myths that people think, well, you know, stroke is only happening in older people. And, you know, again, I want your listeners to think about this. When you're in church and you're looking around and you're looking at people, you're thinking, oh, well, you may see people with stroke, but you don't think how many people younger, so when I say younger, 50s and younger are having stroke, we're seeing more of it. And, you know, when I was in training, I can tell you, when we saw a person who had a stroke in the young, we would always be wondering about a couple things. Is there something wrong with the heart that caused to have a stroke, meaning that a blood clot, you know, may have slipped off from the heart and lodged in the brain? Or is there something that they have a clotting problem in the blood? You know, you hear about hemophiliacs and people who have blood clotting problems. Is there something there? But a lot of times we would think it'd be due to drugs. And this is something that's important. Stroke in young can occur. It can occur definitely with drugs. Most commonly it's cocaine that can really cause this to happen in people. But it can just happen in younger folks. So you have to be on the lookout. You have to be looking at someone and saying, this looks like a stroke. Don't try to guess, is it or is it not? Make sure the person goes to the hospital.
Are there any factors that increase the probability of someone having a stroke?
Yeah, there sure are. So let's stay on the young person right now. You have a young person right now, and if you're a woman and you're on birth control pills and you're a smoker, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about stroke. That's the first thing. Second thing, if you're younger and older, you've got high blood pressure. You got pressures running, 150, the top number, the systolic, 150s, 160s. Higher than that, I am worried about stroke. And as a doctor, I can tell you, when I talk to my people, I say, hey, listen, I'm worried about the blood pressure because I'm worried about stroke. I'm worried that this pressure is going to get too high, and that's going to cause a stroke in the brain. Who's on pressure medicine, stay on your pressure medicine. And just because you don't feel the pressure being high, you do not feel anything, you still got to stay on, because the blood pressure can cause a stroke. And we know it's causing a lot of stroke. And actually, the emergency room doctors have told me so many times, please, please, please talk to everyone about taking their pressure medicine, because that's the number one thing they see in the emergency room coming through with stroke. The person didn't take the medicine, ran out of the medicine, cut the medicine in half, forgot to take it. Those are some things. So pressure medicine is huge. The other thing for risk factor for stroke we know is this condition called atrial fibrillation. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's when the heart rate goes real fast, real fast. And it's called AFib a lot of times. People who have it will say AFib. All right. So here's the trouble when you've got AFib. When you have AFib, your heart rate is going so fast that blood that's supposed to be going through the heart like in a rhythm is now not going through the heart in that rhythm. It's being sloshed around a lot. And when it does, it can have little clots develop. The blood can clump up. And these little clots, if you will, can get flipped off from the heart all the way through the neck, through the vessels in the neck to your brain. And you are at increased risk of having a stroke if you have AFib. So some people said, well, okay, How do you know if you have AFib? Sometimes you feel the flutter in the heart, and it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people. They feel very nervous. They feel anxious, and they think the heart is racing. That's something to talk to the doctor about. The other thing is sometimes AFib can come on from drinking alcohol. So we have cases where we know that people who've had alcohol to drink, and, let's say it could be a small amount, it could be a large amount, but it push the heart into an AFib pattern, and we see that. And then the other thing is women appear to be more at risk for stroke with AFib than men. It looks like women are also getting AFib more than men. So that's one thing about this heart rate. And then the last thing, I'm going to tell everyone this, and you were probably wondering about this, is this physical inactivity. We are just not moving. We're not walking around the way we should. We're not exercising. We're just sitting. And, sitting, you've heard it, is the new smoking. It's true. And you've got to move. You have got to walk. You've got to move. You've got to do some kind of physical activity, because we feel that that's leading to obesity. The obesity issue then is leading to many troubles, including diabetes, and all these things can feed into setting you up for a stroke.
Well, having said all that, I know you had to go, and I appreciate so much your being able to call in.
Oh, sure.
How does anyone get in touch with you and the Sirius Project?
Well, there's a couple things, and I'm saying, I want to thank you again for having me on to talk about this, because this is a real issue, a really big issue in the African-American community, especially here in Chicago, where, our people are coming in late to the emergency room. Instead of coming in 3 hours to try to get a medication, they're coming in way over 3 hours, and by that time, a lot of the damage is done. You can do two things. You can go on our Sirius website. It's www.sirius.com. Go on there and make the pact to basically sign the pact to act fast, which means if you see a stroke, you're calling 911. And when you go on there, you'll see this little thing that you can sign on to. Type in promoter number 209, because we have a lot of our health promoters out there who are involved with this. Type that number in and your zip code, and you're going to be signing the pact to act. What we're looking to do here in Chicago, and keep this a Chicago study, is we're looking at how many people are signing the pact from our zip codes that are around the areas where we know stroke is high, and that's the south side and the west side of the city. So again, sign the pact to act, put your zip code in, promoter 209. The other thing you can do real quick, you can call a phone number during the day and just say you want to sign the pact. The number is 880-983-8621. You call that number and say, I want to sign the pact to act, and that you can sign up there too. The website has a lot of good information, and I'm encouraging everyone to get on the website and read about our study, what we're doing, and get the word out to call 911 for stroke.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Neelum. Let me check my own tongue for a moment. And what I am going to do is I will sign up tomorrow when I get up in the morning.
That's it.
And I will encourage others to sign up, because, as you said, this is important. And it's not just death, it is disability as well.
Thank you. Thank you for saying disability. This changes people's lives. And if you're empowered and you know what to do, then you know what, you're lessening the risk of it right there. So that's the messaging for tonight. So again, thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you, Dr. Neelum. And when we come back, we're going to have a money moment by H. Cortez, and then our next guest, Tiffini Holmes. Thank you again.
financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's Money Minute. Tonight, guys, I want to start an 8-part series titled Cash Flow Mastery, the 8 steps to financial security. Guys, there's 8 things that you're going to have to do if you want to find yourself secure in your finances in the near and distant future. That's right. That's what I'm all about. Not just getting your money right for today, this year, 6 months from now, 6 years from now, but what about 40 years from now? What about 60 years from now? What about 2 generations from now? It's all about how you approach your thinking as it relates to money and the plan that you put in place. So step number 1 in the 8 steps to financial security when it comes to cash flow mastery is just that, mastering your cash flow. When I talk about mastering your cash flow, it's not just about the money that's coming into you, but you also have to master the cash that's flowing away from you. Is that money that's leaving your hand benefiting you in a positive way for your long-term future, or is it just taking up wings and flying away, never to be seen or heard from again? So what you want to do is understand the 3 things that are keeping you from building wealth and learn how to master them and get your money back from the entities that's getting it from you. Entity number 1 is taxes. Studies show that 8 out of 10 people have their W-4 form filled out incorrectly on their job. As a result, Uncle Sam is withholding too much in their taxes. All right. If you're overpaying your taxes, like 8 out of 10 Americans are, to the tune of $160 per month, that extra $160 could be used to help pay down debt instead of waiting all year to get a refund back. The second entity that is keeping you from financial security is the banks by way of debt, credit card debt, student loan debt, furniture debt. Whatever your debts are, if you understand that that's where your money is going, master your cash flow to start eliminating your debt. And then the final entities that are beating you to your money is big business. Do you have to have the latest and greatest in everything? Or instead of upgrading every time there is a chance to upgrade, you use that money to start mastering your cash flow? Guys, I'm excited about this series. I'm your boy, H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out the Straight No Chaser show with my girl, Rhea Ray, as your host. And until I talk to you next week, get your money up, because you can do it. Peace.
And that was H. Cortez giving us our money moment. He'll actually be back a little later on in tonight's segment because I was not personally on the air last week, so I have 2 segments to do of his today. Well, now, after having Dr. Neelum call in, I have my in-studio guest, Ms. Tiffini Holmes. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
And you are the owner of Total Transformation Wellness Coaching, LLC.
That's correct, yes.
And you have a personal testimony to give about your health. And then we're going to talk about what your business is and how we in the community need to basically get ourselves right.
Right.
So tell us your story.
So my story is, it starts out pretty typical of most overweight people. I had a normal childhood and I literally stayed at home from summer camp one year and went from a normal sized active kid to slightly chubby. And over the years, I gained more weight. And then I was about 25 years old, and I was a full-time student, a full-time employee in a upwardly mobile position. I was trying to get a manager role, and so I was pursuing an MBA, and I had a death. And then I had just purchased a condo, so the weight just started piling on. And I think probably in about a year's time, maybe a year and a half, I had put on an additional 100 pounds. So I don't know exactly how much I was at, but probably at my highest, I was pretty close to 400 pounds. which is way too much weight for any individual to be carrying, but I'm only 5'5" on my best day. So
You sound like my mother. I'm 5'6" and 2/3. I
you
said
know,
2/3. Okay. All right.
So I was still active, still dating, still traveling and doing all those things. But finally I was like, you know what? This is too much. This is just too much to be carrying around. I live in a condo and I park in the basement. And so I have to go up 14 stairs just to get to the elevator, then to get to the third floor where I live. And I was out of breath every day from
From the
climbing
14
14
stairs.
stairs. And I was like, I'm probably 32 at the time. That's unacceptable. So I was like, let me start where I can. Let me just try and walk as far as I can for as long as I can until I can escalate from there. I started working out with a trainer, and now we're 4 years in, and I've lost and kept off 162 pounds and counting.
Awesome.
Yeah. So.
Now, you weren't exhibiting any quote unquote health issues.
No. And that's probably why for me it went on so long, because I would always go to the doctor. I had routine checkups, no blood pressure issues, no cholesterol issues, no joint issues, no heart issues, no nothing. And she would always say, Tip, that's not gonna last forever. And I was like, yeah, but I'm young.
But I'm
and
good now.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm young, I'm cute, I'm good, I got this. And it was no longer enough for me. So I didn't even have any medical push. So it literally had to be a mindset thing for me.
And when you saw the weight loss that you've kept off, what have you felt that's been any different?
You know what? It's a world of difference. You don't know you're sick sometimes until you get well. When you don't have a medical prompting, you don't have a clue. So as I started to move faster, as I started to have even more energy, it was like, who knew that this weight was really weighing me down this way?
Now, I'm going to say this because typically I will say something every show and people may be like, I see a lot of advertisement now for, in particular, women. And they are what is, I'm not even going by the BMI and all that stuff, but just visibly overweight. And the commentary is, I'm big and beautiful and get over it, et cetera, et cetera. It's almost like an overly hostile response to what I know has been backlash against people that are heavy. But when I look at that and I go, okay, and that's cool, but are you okay really?
Right.
Do you think you're okay?
Right.
And for some reason, especially in the African American community, we've convinced ourselves on some level that being a size 22 is okay, as long as I'm not quote unquote ill.
It's not okay.
So can you talk to that a little bit?
First things first, that's not okay. We understand that the BMI charts may be skewed, and we understand that they don't always take in muscle mass and all that other kind of stuff. But you know when you're carrying too much weight, and I don't care how it's proportioned, and if your brick house is a condo, an apartment, whatever, it's too much. And so you've got to get that weight off. And here's the thing. It's fine to be confident, and it's fine to think you look good at any size, but this goes beyond aesthetics. I tell people that all the time. It's not even about how I look. It's a feeling. It's about how I feel. It's about what I can do. And if any of that is limited, and here's the bottom line, if you need a seatbelt extender when you get on a plane, you're too big. If you're not comfortably fitting in that seat, as small as people may think it is, you're too big.
When we think about size, especially like I said, in the African American community, it's a little different, and that's okay. But my question is, how do you know that you don't feel well, like you said, if you have been consistently sick? Because when I look out now at the younger people, I remember being 12, 13, which was a while ago, but I was like a size 2'4", and I'm not saying that that was necessarily the norm. But when I see young girls that have not had children, and I see this overlapping stomach, I see all this weight, I see all this sluggishness, I see a complexion that's not clear. And I'm not talking about the regular acne that some people get.
Sure.
I'm talking about a different kind of look. I can't even actually describe it, but I know you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
If that's what you are at 12 and 13, and then let's fast forward to 25, 26,
Exactly.
I don't know that that person may know that you're not big and beautiful totally. You're big, beautiful, and you still need to lose weight because they've been in that position for a very long time. How do you suggest to break that cycle?
So I tell people develop healthy habits. You know, let's just remove the weight aspect from it altogether. Are you exercising every day? Are you doing some sort of movement, whether that's walking, getting in the gym, playing some sort of activity? What are you consuming? And I mean that from what you're watching on TV to what you're listening to what you put in your body. Because we're talking about total health here.
We're going to stop because you said something that most people are not going to quite understand when you talked about the holistic consuming of products, meaning what you hear, what you see. How does that affect your total overall being?
What you take in is, to a certain extent, what you put out, but it definitely impacts what you put out. If you're listening to a friend who's constantly negative, then that's going to have you, after you're done talking to them, even if you don't exhibit the negativity, you're going to be exhausted.
You're going to be worn out.
And so then you're not going to be able to function. I had a rough day at work. And what happens after that? You're snapping when you're in traffic, or you come home and whoever is there is like, hey, how are you? And don't say anything to me. I need whatever. What you take in is going to come back out somehow.
I remember Earl, the producer here, telling us a story once about listening to some really hardcore rap music and how he felt so amped up.
Yes.
And when he recognized it, Earl, have you listened to some hard rap since then? He has not. Because it took him to a different place.
Absolutely.
So I totally get that. We're going to take another break so we can do the second installment of tonight's version of Money Moment. And then we're going to have a little more conversation about not just your LLC company, but where do we go from here? On the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeart Radio Station.
Greetings, Ray Ray, my Straight No Chaser family. It's your boy H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's Money Moment. Tonight, we're going to continue with our 8-part series, Cash Flow Mastery, 8 Steps to Financial Success. Real quick, I'm going to give you a recap because we're on step number 5. So I'm going to recap the first 4 steps. Step number 1, cash flow mastery. You got to understand how to get a hold of your cash flow and how to master it. Not only the cash that flows into your hand, but also the cash that flows away from you. Get a hold of that cash. Make sure that you get ahead of your bills so you're not paying late fees and overdraft fees and that sort of thing. Step number 2 is create that mini emergency fund, $2,000 to $3,000 per month, where you can get your hands on it in the case of an emergency. Step number 3 was create the habit of investing. Right now, the amount that you invest is not the concern. The concern is the habit. Get used to putting $5, $10, $15, $25 every time you get paid into some sort of investment. Just create the habit. Step number 4 is focus on eliminating all consumer debt, right? So if you are caught up in some of those buy here, pay here car loans, let's get rid of that. If you leasing furniture from Rent-A-Center or National Rent-A-Own, places like that, then let's get rid of that. You got credit card debts. Let's get rid of that. You got department store debts. Let's get rid of that. Because every dollar that you are paying interest on is a dollar that you're not earning interest on as an investment. So keep that in mind. And every debt that you pay off, it's like giving yourself a pay raise. So let's get rid of all consumer debt. Now on to step number 5. Step number 5 is increase investing, right? So step number 3 was create the habit of investing. Step number 5 is increase your investments, because guess what? If you eliminated all of that debt, you should have some additional cash freed up. So you want to go ahead and start increasing to $100, $200, $300 every time you get paid going into some sort of investment, whether it's a 401k investment, an individual Roth IRA. It doesn't really matter. You just want to be increasing the amount that you invest every time you get more and more disposable income. So keep that in mind. Step number 1, cash flow mastery. Step number 2, create that mini emergency fund. Step number 3, start the habit of investing. Step number 4, eliminate debt. And then step number 5, once that debt is gone, go ahead and start increasing the amount. Now the amount that you invest does become important. So I'm H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out the Straight No Chaser show. If you want more information on practical wealth building strategies, go over to my website, www.financialhealthmentor.com. Put in your best email address, and I'll shoot you some information that can get you on the road to financial success. So until I talk to you guys next week, get your money up, because you can do it. Peace.
And that was part 2 of our money moment tonight. So we are in a special 8-part series. So we have now just done part 5. I didn't want anyone to miss any of these segments. So I'm back with my lovely Tiffini Holmes, who is the owner of Total Transformation Wellness Coaching, LLC. And we were talking about what you're taking in and therefore what you're putting out. Mm-hmm. So when you ask those questions, are you moving around any? You know, what are you watching? What are you listening to? When you get the answers, mm-hmm. how do you handle that? Are you doing an assessment and recommendations? What are you telling clients?
Mm-hmm. So there is an assessment process, because the first thing is people will come in and they think they have one issue, or it'll be like, I want to lose some weight. But you have to figure out what caused the weight gain and what's keeping it on. And so that's part of what the assessment is. Sometimes people want to jump right into, okay, so tell me what to eat and tell me what exercises to do. And it's like, I can absolutely tell you that, but if you're not going to cook, or if you have time management issues that make you think you can't meal prep, then we've got to start there to get you to a place where now you can make or prepare what you need to be consuming. So that's what my service is for.
And when we look at the community, mm-hmm. and right now we're talking about the African American community, mm-hmm. to me, we're looking at so many multifaceted issues.
Yeah.
I know there's been the big debate about what the children eat when they go to school for mm-hmm. breakfast and for lunch. Mm-hmm. I know that with more single family homes, and even when you're in a 2-parent home, a lot of times both parents have to work. You're dealing with a lot less cooking sure. than previously, and previous generations. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, looking back at when I was young, like so many years ago, you didn't have the internet.
Sure.
You didn't have World Star Hip Hop and all these other sites, mm-hmm. etc. Mm-hmm. So, and you did not. When I was in high school, for example, and for all the Prince fans out there, yeah. there was a big deal in Chicago about not being able to play Erotic City on the air. Mm-hmm. I don't know if a lot of people remember that. And I want to say it was either Doug Banks or Crazy Howard, but whichever one of them it was, that, and I'm sure now it was a publicity stunt, but when they played the song, they got suspended for some days.
Okay.
Now you can hear all kinds of language on the radio as well as on quote unquote network television. We're not even talking about cable. So with all this negative energy coming in, you know, you hear these sirens all the time, you hear these gunshots all the time.
Right.
Because I do believe a good amount of the African American community has some form of PTSD because of things. What is your mental state? How do you change it if there's a problem with it? And then what is your output? Because I also don't believe you can be as effective a community activist, leader,
Absolutely,
mother, child, whatever the case is, when you're under physical, emotional, and psychological duress.
Absolutely. That's 100% correct. And I think that that is the crux of the matter in our community. The sense of community is gone because everybody is in a rat race, just trying to make it, trying to make the money to pay the bills, to put food on the table. Everybody's either working or they're scared to come outside. And that's the biggest difference. Like for me, at one point, my parents worked alternating shifts to make sure that somebody was always home when my brother and I were coming home or going to school. So we had a buffer. If my parents couldn't be there, my grandmother was in the area. And if my grandmother wasn't around, our neighbors were around. So, and for all the other kids on the block, they didn't allow us to fight with each other. There was a general sense of community. That's gone now because people are scared to come outside. People are too busy to come outside. People are sick because they're just tired. And so that's where it all comes back into the holistic health. We need to be mentally sound, we need to be emotionally stable, and we need to be physically healthy enough to get back into our communities and to do work. Everybody isn't going to be the Jesse Williams on the BET Awards giving a fantastic speech that's going to be retweeted and reposted 100 times. Some of us really need to be the ones that are just sitting on the porch watching the stuff that's happening, being in our garden, growing that fresh fruit, that fresh vegetables, so that we don't have to be so restricted by the food deserts that we live in. Then getting the next generation involved in those very same things, so it becomes a new legacy that we leave. We used to do it, so we need to get back to it.
When we're looking at someone that's, let's just say someone that's watching right now.
Okay.
And until this moment, they thought everything was okay. Now they're like, well, maybe I need to look at some things. What would you advise that they checked themselves about? And I don't mean check as in a negative, I'm gonna check you, boo, type of thing. I mean, as far as consider that is a negative thing that doesn't always appear or is always not presented as a negative.
So again, I asked the question, what are you consuming? What are you watching? And there at least needs to be a balance. Now, I'm not a reality TV person, so the hip hop whoever's and the basketball whatever's,
I've heard names and I'm like, who are these people?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
yes.
So that's definitely not my thing. So I'm just like, if you're watching that, cut it out. Because then you see that behavior emulated, and then you hear our younger boys like, you know what, I don't want to be bothered with a black girl because she has a bad attitude and this and that. Why? Because she's emulating exactly what she's seen on TV. And then you see people fighting and all this other kind of stuff. Rap lyrics, what are you hearing? So even if you don't completely eliminate that type of stuff, what are you bringing in to counterbalance that? And that's for adults and for kids.
I want to say this because it's still so disturbing to me. Last week, there was a young lady who was on the red line, the L in Chicago. And from what I understand, because I've refused to watch any of the social media commentary on it, but from what I understand, there was some type of an argument that ensued with a male passenger. I don't know if he knew her or not. Let's assume he did, but maybe he didn't. And what was so disturbing to me was that we have gotten so, to me, insane with it that people thought it was entertainment to video the argument. And So while they were videoing and he stabs her literally to death, you have this on video somewhere.
Yeah.
And from what I was told, that's how her family found out, by seeing this posted on social media.
We're so desensitized.
Unbelievable. So I'm thinking, yes, if you had the video, you should have taken that to the police so that could be evidence.
Could you call the police before you start to video? Maybe.
Well, no, because we're videoing what we consider to be entertainment. You arguing with your man. Hold on, girl, it's about to get real good, and put the phone up. And that's where problem number one is for me. That we've become so accustomed to negativity being viewed as entertainment.
Exactly.
And like I said, now you have someone's murder on your phone. So, and how many times that went around the world, I don't know. And I feel horrifically for those family members because that's something that they'll never get over on some levels. But if we can bring back a sense of peace, and my girlfriend and I talk about this all the time, how do you get the horse back in the barn? Because I don't know how you back away from that type of behavior. But for those of us who know that the behavior is wrong, we have to encourage others to, hey, this is not that time.
Right.
Or if you're going to bang some music, even if it has some cursing lyrics, when it starts to degrade men or women, when it starts to disrespect someone's person, which recognizing that the B word is, yes, still disrespect.
Yeah.
You know, all of that. Hey, don't do that. You know what? Let's think about how maybe you don't mind if somebody called your mother or your daughter a B, but you should.
Absolutely, you should.
If we could reschool and retool the community, then maybe we would have some better results on a bigger scale.
Absolutely. Because it starts with the individual. If I don't have a goal, if I don't have an aspiration, if I don't have enough value for my own person, my own life, then certainly when I see yours, I'm like, hey, whatever. If it's not entertaining me, it's not worth anything to me. And so we've got to get all the way back to, when did we lose our self-respect, our self-worth, our self-value, and how do we reinstate that effective immediately? And that's an all hands on deck job.
Well, with that, I thank you so much, Miss Beautiful Tiffini Holmes. Tell the viewers and listeners how to reach you, because a lot of people need to, in my opinion, sign up for an assessment and some follow through at the Total Transformation Wellness Coaching Center.
Yes. So they can find me. My website is www.totaltransformationcoaching.com, or you can find me on social media at TTW Coach.
And with that, that's it for this week's segment of the Straight No Chaser Show. As always, dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. Be safe, everyone. Be at peace.
With no chaser, it gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.